Turkey hosts Iran's foreign minister just days after President Erdogan publicly made up with Russia's Vladimir Putin. How will the West react to Erdogan reaching out to two of its main global rivals, and what effect will it have on the Syria conflict? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Folly by Thibault. The Turkish government has been hosting Iran's top diplomat in a move seen as a shift in foreign policy after last month's failed coup. Turkey has been unhappy with the West's muted response to the coup and frustrated with continued criticism of its human rights record. The Iranian foreign minister's visit comes just days after Turkey's president's historic trip to Russia, during which he very publicly made up with Vladimir Putin after the shooting down of a Russian fighter plane on the Turkish-Syria border last year. So many are asking whether these moves mark a shift in Turkey's global alliances and what impact will they have on the war in neighbouring Syria. While speaking in Ankara, both the Turkish and Iranian foreign ministers said that while both nations disagree on the Syria conflict, they will keep the dialogue open.
We've shared our respective views on Syria, and we've agreed to keep in closer contact from now on this matter. In relation to the territorial integrity of Syria, including its borders, we are in agreement. We did have disagreements on certain issues up till now, but we've never stopped speaking to each other. Our dialogue has always been ongoing.
Iran has continuously been having positive dialogues in relation to Syria. And with Russia, we've got the same kind of cooperation. We believe that all sides should work together to return tranquility and calm to the region and fight extremism. In Syria, we are ready to work and cooperate with Turkey and Russia, and we welcome the new cooperation that has started between Russia and Turkey.
Well, let's take a closer look at Iran, Russia and Turkey's stance on Syria. Iran has been a key ally of the Syrian government, providing advisors and military supplies for its battles against rebels. Russia, too, has supported President Bashar al-Assad, mostly via airstrikes over the past year. It says it is bombing the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, but monitoring groups say Russia's strikes have mainly targeted other Syrian rebels. Until now, Turkey has been on the opposite side of Syria's war. It's repeatedly called for Assad to step down and has allegedly helped armed rebels. But Turkey opposes Syrian Kurdish groups who are also fighting Assad. And this week, Turkey blurred the lines even more when it signed an agreement with Russia to launch joint airstrikes against ISIL in Syria. Well, let's now bring in our guests to get their thoughts. In Ankara, Yusuf Kanli, journalist and former editor of Hurriyet Daily News. In Paris, we have Bassma Kodmani, former spokesperson for the SNC Syria opposition group and executive director of the Arab Reform Initiative. In Washington, D.C., Henri Barkey, director of the Middle East program at the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars. Thank you all. Welcome to Inside Story. Bassma Kodmani in Paris, if I can start with you. How does the Syrian opposition view this rapprochement between Turkey and two of Bashar al-Assad's staunchest supporters?
So far, I think we will say that there is good consultations with the Syrian opposition on behalf of the Turkish government, and therefore a good dialogue and an open channel on what Turkey intends to do. The sense we get is indeed that Turkey has now the intention of ceasing to antagonize a number of countries, especially that it has felt frustration with its allies, particularly the United States, but also Europe, and has antagonized those neighbors that are Iran and Russia on the Syrian issue. That it may be more useful for its own role to be in a position of bridging positions between countries. Now, that does not imply any movement towards the political position that Russia and Iran have taken.
Right.
That is our understanding.
But I wonder, Bassma Kodmani, if there is concern among the Syrian opposition that Turkey might change its strategy, strategy in Syria, that perhaps it might give up on some of the demands it made in the past, such as that Bashar al-Assad must step down.
Well, clearly, this is where I think we need to do a very clear objective analysis. For Turkey to ignore that there is a movement in Syria that rejects Bashar al-Assad massively, and particularly at its own borders with those areas that are controlled by the opposition, I think indicates that Turkey has no choice but to go for a solution where the population of Syria, particularly in the north, will agree to stabilize and come back under some law and order of a Syrian political government. And for that to happen, that Bashar al-Assad cannot be part of that. But what we can say is that we ourselves see the need for a security and a stabilization plan for Syria, of which Bashar al-Assad's departure will be a part. Bashar al-Assad's departure on its own is a demand, is by the people, clearly, but it also has to be operationalized in a plan. And this is where I think Turkey has the space and a position where it can play a role, an important role in that respect.
Well, let's hear from Yusuf Kanli in Ankara. Yusuf Kanli, what message is the Turkish government sending with this rapprochement with Iran last week with Russia and Vladimir Putin? Is it leverage or is there a fundamental policy shift?
Of course, the golden question is whether Turkey is changing its policy and moving away from supporting the Syrian opposition groups, aligning with Bashar al-Assad's Syria, together with Iran and Russia. I don't think Turkey will do that because of many reasons, but particularly because of its own interests in the area. Turkey needs to have a stable Syria. Turkey needs to have integrity of Syria, very much like Iran and Russia. I think on that issue they agree. But as regards transformation of Syria into a secure state in the region, for that the prime condition of getting rid of the current Ba'athist regime in Baghdad remains to be high on Turkey's agenda, which I think is not a sustainable policy in the long run. Sooner or later, Turkey will have to soften down and agree, already is signaling that, a transition period with Assad in office. There are even claims that at one point Turkey might, after mending ties with Israel, after mending ties with Russia, and now going back to normalcy and better relations with Iran, why not mending ties with Assad as well?
Okay.
But I think that's a little bit exaggeration for now.
Okay, well, let's hear from Henri Barkey in Washington. Henri, Turkey has clearly been upset with the U.S. over its perceived muted response to the July coup. Also, Fethullah Gulen, the exiled cleric, who Turkey say is behind that coup, is in the U.S. right now. They want him extradited. That hasn't happened yet. Do you think that the U.S. might... How do you think the U.S. might react to seeing this rapprochement between Turkey and Iran, and also Turkey and Russia?
I think the U.S. is probably going to play this down because it doesn't think that this is a very serious long-term engagement of Turkey with Russia and Iran. It may appear as, for example, the two sides, Russia and Turkey, have agreed to conduct joint airstrikes with the two of them against ISIS. But the fact of the matter is, at the moment, the Turks are involved in supplying arms to the Syrian opposition with the United States. So they're an integral part of the armed opposition now. And to see that being changed overnight is very difficult. Besides,
but as we've seen in the last few months, Henri, Turkey has expressed frustration with the U.S. over the Kurdish issue, of course. And that is an important problem that needs to be resolved.
That's true, but the Russians are much more flexible than the United States at this point in time. Look, the United States has changed its strategic priorities at the moment. For the United States, the most important priority is ISIS, and Assad comes in second. For the Turks, the most important priority are the Kurds first, Assad second, ISIS third. So there is a complete mismatch at the moment, and this will have to be worked out somehow. But in the end, we have to look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is that Turkey is part of the Western alliance, is not in its interest to break its ties to the Western alliance, because Iran and Russia cannot provide much except for gas that Turkey needs. And when you look at Turkish exports, when you look at Turkish engagement over decades, that engagement has been with the West. Iran and Russia have very, very little to offer in terms of money, in terms of investment, in terms of tourism, in terms of markets for Turkish exports. So at this stage, I think the Turks are playing a little bit of the coy. They're trying to show that they're very upset, and the Russians and the Iranians are playing along with this. But fundamentally, as Yusuf Kanli said, to see Turkey suddenly turn around and say, oh, we are not going to support Bashar al-Assad against your position is not realistic. The U.S. and Russians are moving a little bit, and maybe the Turks will go along with that, but that's another discussion.
Yeah, but Bassma Kodmani in Paris, what do you make of that? Henri says the U.S. has changed its priorities when it comes to Syria. Now it's ISIL first, Bashar al-Assad second. Again, isn't there a concern among the opposition that this might also be the case with Turkey in the recent future, that they might give up this idea of seeing Bashar al-Assad leave power and focus more on ISIL? As we've heard both foreign ministers say today, they have a common interest in fighting ISIL.
Well, my sense is starting with ISIL is the right diplomatic approach. Basically, that this is the conflictual issue on which they can agree easily. They need to warm up to each other. They have set up an important task force composed of diplomats, of intelligence and military security people on both sides, Russia and Turkey, which means there is the intention of a deeper dialogue than simply, are we going to agree on Bashar al-Assad staying or going, or how long will he stay, or when will he go? I think it's clear for Turkey that it has a priority. It has always expressed it and told us, the opposition, very clearly, the Kurdish issue is our major concern. What you will do to include the Kurds of Syria into your democratic future is our immediate and vital interest, and we will help you in doing that, and we are watching carefully what you do with that. So we know that that Turkey is talking to Russia about the Kurdish issue. It definitely is talking to Iran also about the PKK and about the radical agenda that Kurds may carry. That happens to coincide with the Syrian opposition. That is, that the radical demands of Kurds in Syria are not acceptable to the line that mainstream Syrian opposition wants. Actually, not opposition and not even loyalist camp wants what the radical Kurdish PYD is asking for. So we don't have an issue on the Kurdish side. We don't have an issue on cooperation over ISIS. We are unable to fight ISIS on our own, but we definitely want ISIS out of Syria, and it is an enemy of the Syrian opposition from day one.
Okay, Yusuf Kanli.
So there, I think we also don't have a problem.
Yusuf Kanli, sorry, Bassma, sorry to interrupt you. I just want to hear Yusuf's thought on the Kurdish issue, because both of you have spoken about the Kurdish issue. What about this Kurdish issue, Yusuf Kanli in Ankara? The Kurdish insurgency in northern Syria is something that both Syria and Iran have in common. Do you think this Kurdish threat, as far as the Turkish government is concerned, trumps the differences that they might have over the fate of Bashar al-Assad?
We have to first perhaps talk a little bit about the Turkish domestic situation. Now in Turkey we have a rediscovered national unity. It is very strong, it's very powerful, and we have a surge in nationalism once again. This nationalism may climax and may preempt security operation in inside the country as well as outside the country. For a long time, because of the absence of Russian permission in quotes, Turkey was not able to fly over Syria. Therefore, Turkey's operations in Syria were very limited. Now that problem is over as well at the same time. Therefore, Turkey taking military action against Kurdish threat, in quotes again, inside the country and outside, in northern Iraq and in Syria. That will increase tensions in the area for the foreseeable time, I think. For example, the Kurds have moved and passed over Turkey's red lines in the border area. They are mixing the two regions. That is totally unacceptable for Turkey. Now, what will Turkey do in the near future? Will it abide with its own words and say, that was my red line, Kurds passed it, now I will strike? Or will Turkey just accept the situation on the land and say, that is the reality? I think for that, we need to step back a little bit and see how things will settle in Ankara.
Okay.
Because we are still in a transition period.
Indeed, domestic politics are also at play here, obviously.
Ankara, yes, it failed.
Yes, Yusuf Kanli, domestic politics are also at play.
Yeah, it failed, but it will have repercussions in foreign policy as well.
Okay, I do understand that. And I want to hear from Henri on the foreign policy, precisely, Henri. No top official from Western countries have been to Turkey since the failed coup of July. The U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is due in Turkey at the end of August. Do you think he'll be able to ease the tensions between Turkey and Ankara?
Well, first of all, he's not the first American to go. The American Chief of Staff, General Dunford, was there 10 days ago. So Kerry is really the second high official going. But the question is a good one. I don't think he's going to satisfy the Turks, because the Turks want Fethullah Gulen extradited and extradited yesterday. And
is that likely to happen, in your opinion? Will the U.S. heed that call?
Well, look, the United States cannot say whether or not it will extradite somebody who's legally in the United States until it sees all the evidence, takes it to first within the Justice Department as a process, and then it has to go to a judge. All this stuff takes time. So the Turks have sent apparently lots and lots of documents, which are, of course, are all in Turkish, have to be translated, made sure that they fit essentially the norms of the American system, and this takes time. We've never extradited somebody from the United States just because the government wanted the person extradited. As somebody the other day wrote, we did not even extradite IRA folks to Great Britain, who's our greatest ally. So we need to put things in context. It's not going to happen anytime soon. This may drag a year or maybe 2 years before there is a final decision on Mr. Gulen. And the problem is that as long as Turkey harps on this, the relations are likely to get worse. Now, as far as I wanted to make one comment about what Bassma said about the radical agenda of the PYD and wanting ISIS out of the country. Let's face it, at the moment, the only people who are fighting ISIS and trying to get ISIS out of Syria is the PYD. So there's a way in which the Syrian opposition has kind of distanced itself from the PYD, has kind of badmouthed it all this time, and without any overtures towards the PYD and the Syrian Kurds, there's not going to be a solution to the problem of northern Syria. And finally, I find it very hard to believe that the Turks are going to bomb PYD positions in Syria when the United States is working with the PYD in fighting ISIS. So we are at the edge of a major crisis potentially if the Turks suddenly decide to act aggressively against Syrian Kurds. I don't know how this will evolve.
Well, let's hear from Bassma on that. Bassma Kodmani, your response to that. Henri says, if the Syrian opposition doesn't make overtures to the Kurds, and there's not going to be any advances made, no solution to the crisis in Syria.
No, let's be clear. The PYD is fighting with U.S. support. It is actually the main force on which the U.S. is relying as a ground force to fight ISIS on the ground. But that is not just PYD. This is the Syrian Democratic Forces. It's an alliance, and it has important elements from the Free Syrian Army. This is an indication that the Syrian opposition is serious about fighting ISIS. It actually fought ISIS before anyone else. So there is no intention here to fight PYD. Unfortunately, PYD has fought alongside the regime on certain fronts to confront the Syrian opposition. That complicates an agreement and a compromise with the PYD for the Syrian opposition. Nevertheless, accommodating the Kurds' demands is a key concern of the Syrian opposition, and we know it is a concern of Turkey. So we know Turkey will be pushing for that, but we ourselves know that the integrity of the national territory depends on finding an acceptable compromise for the Kurdish issue. There's no intention, I think, from Turkey at this stage to bomb the PYD. Of course, it would be extremely dangerous to do so and antagonize the US when the US is actively arming and supporting these groups. So it's not in terms of military confrontation that we are speaking here. We are speaking in terms of a political agenda for the future.
Speaking of political agendas, Yusuf Kanli in Ankara, do you think there is enough common ground today between Turkey, Iran and Russia for there to be a political solution, a diplomatic solution to the Syria crisis?
I mean, the three countries cannot have anything further than a consultation mechanism. The interests are different, focuses are different, therefore they cannot come up with a common strategy. If they could, I mean, perhaps that would be great, because the three countries, big countries of this region, it would be instrumental to have a resolution. But unfortunately, they don't agree on anything except territorial integrity of Syria. Therefore, I don't think it will be further than a dialogue mechanism, a consultation mechanism. Which I think is, of course, useful as well, but I don't think it will go further than that.
Okay. Henri Barki, let me hear your thoughts. I want to widen this out a little bit. We've seen an easing of tensions also between Turkey and Israel, an easing of tensions between Turkey and Russia, and now Turkey and Iran. Turkey, of course, is a major, if not the most powerful player in this region today. How do you see Turkey basically balancing these ties between East and West?
Well, look, I think what the Turks are doing in a way quite smartly is they are reaching out to these countries and getting what they want on a bilateral level from each of these countries. So when you look at the relationship between Turkey and Israel, why did the Turks open up? In some ways, it is to maybe improve Turkey's image in the West especially, but fundamentally it is about the possibility ultimately of Israeli gas and maybe even Cypriot gas, if there's a deal on Cyprus, being shipped to Turkey and then from Turkey to the West. So it was part of a much larger, very pragmatic approach to Israel. On Russia, they had to do this because they essentially got cut off from Russian tourism, Russian markets after the shoot down of the Russian airplane over Turkish, after incursion in Turkish airspace. Sure. And it is really, you see that paradoxically, it's like Putin has more influence on Turkey than the United States at the moment, because Putin, by cutting off all these access to Turkey, forced the Turks to make a 180-degree turn. So it's interesting in a sense that we in the United States we try to. Okay. Yeah.
I just want to hear Bassma Kodmani. You have the last word on this. How do these shifting alliances, as far as the Syrian opposition is concerned, how are they going to affect the conflict in Syria? Do you see the opposition benefiting from this at all?
There is a potential big benefit from that. provided there is good coordination, and there has been so far. I believe that if Russia were to come to a more reasonable position, which it definitely doesn't have for the moment, it is really aligning itself with Bashar al-Assad's policy. But if Russia were to become a more reasonable player and more realistic about Syria, Turkey has a lot to offer, in the sense that Turkey is the one country, the most important country, that can bring elements of a security plan and guarantee a security plan and actually contribute actively to putting it together. What Russia has been asking is, what is the alternative to Bashar al-Assad? Are you going to create another Libya and Syria with militias all over the place? The answer is, Turkey can be definitely that player who can provide that answer.
Okay, we'll leave it there.
Moderate opposition, that is a good partner.
We'll leave it there. Thank you so much for a very interesting discussion. We've learned a lot of things, obviously. Thank you so much. In Ankara, Yusuf Kanli. In Paris, Bassma Kodmani. And in Washington, D.C., we had Henri Barquet with us. Thank you all for being on Inside Story. And thank you as well for watching. You can always see this program again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. For further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Of course, our handle is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Folly, Thibault, and the whole team, thanks for watching. Bye for now.